And the only way that will happen is if the real sector is driving the economy.
True.
For the real sector to drive the economy, it must have access to capital.
True.
That would only happen if the banks are forced to. If the banks are left alone, they would always say there's no enabling environment. We don't know when that is going to happen. And the enabling environment, business, small to mid-sized businesses, spring rating employment, generating income, generating taxes.
Thank you very much. I love what you mentioned with regards to the real sector driving the economy, because I want to tie it to our next headline.
No, but one last thing.
Yes.
In 2019, lending, gross credit lending in the Nigerian economy rose by 1.1 trillion naira. Now imagine if this policy was not there.
Right, so the reason I'm bringing this to our next story is that the Guardian reports that World Bank has put Nigeria's growth at 2.1% in 2020. They've described this as a sluggish economic path. And I'm linking the two stories because one of the reasons why they've mentioned that the largest economies in Africa, that's Angola, Nigeria, and South Africa, are sluggishly increasing. One of such in Nigeria, at least, is the policies of our central bank. And, in terms of the fact that, I'll just list a few things that they've mentioned here. I was talking about some of and a central bank targeting manifold objectives that are not conducive to confidence.
Yeah.
So we've seen in the past, at least from the central bank governor, some of the policies that they have introduced, and some people have complained that it's too much control, and some of these things should happen naturally if the environment is made conducive. What do you have to say about this report, Orji?
Yeah, sometimes you see stories that they are light. There's nothing to analyze, or rather, there's a lot to analyze because the story does not have a lot.
Yeah.
Other times you see stories where it's a lot and you don't need to do any analysis.
Yeah.
So what I just do is to summarize what they've said because
Absolutely.
they've said quite a lot.
Yes.
But first thing is to acknowledge that if the good projections are met, the good thing would be that there will be no recession in Nigeria in 2020. So that would be a good thing.
Okay.
Having said that, I must also mention that it's obvious the 2.1% here is not good enough.
Yes.
It's not good enough because if you look at the projections they've given, the world over, so the global economic growth is projected to be 2.5%.
Yeah.
So that means Nigeria will be less than the world
projection.
Even going further, they also say that emerging markets and developing economies are projected to rise by 4.1%.
Yes.
I want to believe that Nigeria is an emerging market. So we are short of the global economic growth projection. We are not even up to we're just about half of what is expected from the emerging markets. And again, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
There was a time in the past where we used to believe that Nigeria was good enough to be part of one of those BRICS economy.
Yes.
Couldn't make it. They reduced it for us, and we said we're going to be part of the Mint economy. I'm not even sure we've made that as well. So, but the good thing is they've given what they believe is part of the course of this, and they've also given a solution.
Yes.
So the story says that it's one that the macroeconomic framework in Nigeria is characterized by multiple exchange rates, foreign exchange restrictions,
Yes.
high persistent inflation, and the central bank targeting manifold objectives, like you've mentioned, that are not conducive to confidence.
Yes.
What have they suggested? They've said that policymakers should seize the opportunity to undertake structural reforms that boost broad-based growth, which is essential to poverty reduction. They've now gone further to give ideas as to how to do that. They say Nigeria should take steps to improve the business climate.
Yes.
Nigeria should respect the rule of law. I'm emphasizing on the rule of law because you cannot have, I've been seeing it on this show countless times, we do not respect contracts, we do not have respect for the rule of law.
Yeah.
And proper foreign investors would not come in when your economy is not conducive.
Yes.
They've also talked about Nigeria having to manage their debt properly. Debt management profile is terrible. We know it's got out of hand, particularly under this administration. So they've suggested that we should do something about it. And they've also asked us to look for productivity that can help achieve sustained growth. So like I said, the story is thick. There's a lot to be read. If only the policymakers would read it and not think that the World Bank is out to, because what we do is we pick and choose.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think the federal government will take this report seriously? As we know that historically, at least for this administration, when the report doesn't favor us, it's said not to be factual.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when it favors us, would blow it out of proportion.
Let me ask very quickly. In 2019, the president famously appointed some economists to the economic management team. Do you have we have any reports on what they've done so far? Any recommendations, actions, or is it too early to ask what they're up to?
I don't think it's too early to up what they're up to. But even when that economic team was constituted, one of the first questions was whether the president was going to do them.
Yes.
And I understand that the chairman of the advisory council, one of the first things he said was that the closure of Nigerian land borders was not proper and right, and that has not been obeyed.
I mean, they extended it. Extended the closure.
So well, let's. I always say give them room and let's see if they will progress. But well.
All right.
All right. We have a message from Chi on WhatsApp. It says, "Good morning. Banks are profit-oriented businesses, not developmental institutions. They should have the discretion to lend to whatever capacity they have defined comfortable. If the CBN wants to propel the economy, they should create intervention funds and get banks like Bank of Industry to do more lending."
All right, thank you very much. And Austin says the banks have unpaid loans and bad debts because they gave their loans to their cronies and they also got kickbacks for every penny. Let's move on to this next story, Mr. C. I really like this one. 2020, Federal Road Safety Court to prosecute sirens, convoy offenders. I won't tell you, I won't give a summary. I'll just read the headline again for people who are listening because I know that the offenders are listening to us at the moment. Some of the offenders. FRSC to prosecute sirens, convoy offenders. Mr. C, please take us to the story.
Okay, so interesting story, another familiar soundbite. Because this is not the first time they promised to prosecute sirens and convoy offenders. And this is where it gets really hilarious. It says that's a call marshal of the FRSC says the FRSC would work with the Nigeria police force to ensure that offenders are prosecuted accordingly and the act is reduced to a bare squadron. Excuse me. All the offenders, these men as major component of those convoys. Who's going to arrest them?
Mr. C, God bless you for saying that because I'll take our minds back to 2015. And I'm reading a text that was published on one of these blogs or one of the newspapers. It said the Nigerian police force has said that it will arrest all unauthorized persons who use sirens in the country. Who's the police going to arrest when they're the ones driving the cars most of the time?
Let me bring this home. We have certain A-class traditional rulers who use convoys. I've seen them personally.
Yeah, but are they authorized to do so though?
They're not, clearly. Under the law, they're not.
Okay.
But
so who is authorized to use sirens?
So it's the president, the vice president, federation, the speaker, and the senate president.
Okay.
That's it. For the state level, it's the governor, the deputy, and the speaker of the House of Assembly. That's it.
So just 3 principal officers of the state.
Yes.
Well, there are more actually.
Okay.
The Inspector General of Police, by default, obviously. The general officers commanding, deputy inspectors generals of police, assistant inspector generals of police, as well as commissioners of police. And then president, like you said, vice president, senate president, House of Representatives, speaker, and the deputy state governors and service chief.
Yeah, so I was focused on the civilians, and thank you, Val. Now, we know the people who are making this law. We know them.
Some of us have entered.
They are not unknown. Who's going to, how is this going? Now, the FRSC said to impound the vehicle. Seriously. Please, seriously.
Let me ask a question. Let me take another angle. Because when I was reading this story, I took a note of 2 things.
Okay.
Why do people feel the need to use go in convoys, particularly security details, to go back to the state of security as well as traffic situation? I know before they come at me that there's no reason for bad behavior. What is the law is the law. However, if you notice, I know people who are coming from the airport and they ask for security detail and even pay for because of security. I know people who travel in certain parts of the country, particularly expatriates as well, Port Harcourt, some parts of Lagos, who have to go with security detail because of the issue of security. Can we really do away with it if the issues of security are not attended to?
For every law, there are always an exception. Now, yes, there's peculiar circumstances that require that the security detail be attacked, and you apply for it. But Nigerians, when you give them an inch, they take 10 miles. So it's
not just Nigerians, everyone. Please don't give us.
No, but this is
everywhere in the world, any human being.
We don't have this problem in the UK. We don't have this problem in the US. We don't have
given them an inch.
We don't have this problem in Ghana, Togo, or Benin. So the truth of the matter is this: we need to get serious. Yes, you could get a security report that suggests that your prone to an attack.
True.
That is a one-off. It's not supposed to happen regularly.
Yes.
And then two, some people just don't want to sit down in traffic.
Yes.
That's it. And then three, they don't plan their journey. So you have a top government functionary who has a 10 o'clock flight out of the country. He's in Ikoyi or via even Banana Island. And then he leaves his house at 9:15 p.m.
That's a very good point, because if you're not facing the reality that others face, you won't want to solve the problem. If you don't understand what it means to sit in traffic, miss flights, take a quick, bike. And thank God you mentioned plan your route, because in this report it talks about, again, we emphasizes don't use Google, your maps whilst you drive. Don't hold it in your
Don't
hands.
hold your phone.
Yeah, don't use it. Sorry, don't hold.
Don't
it in
hold
hands.
your phone, yeah.
Thank you so much.
A message from Awele He says, can FRSC or whoever just get on with sanctioning users? How many times will we hear this? What about convoys who drive on the wrong side of the road? Will the police arrest themselves? We're not yet serious. Yesterday I was driving in traffic, and this is me, not a message. I was driving, I was in traffic, I was on Bodilon, and two sirens, two convoys rather, me. And the usual way is to try to pat the traffic like they're patting the Red Sea in between traffic, and they are driving recklessly, so much so that they are threatening to knock you off the road. How is that even responsible?
I'm glad you compare it to the Red Sea, because they're expecting a miracle.
Oh, of course.
That's things will just happen.
Once you
Space
hear the
will just
siren,
show up.
and
There's a culture of
traffic will pass over you.
impunity in Nigeria, and until we all collectively decide to tackle that culture and get rid of it, we will continue to read soundbites like this. We'll continue to experience the sort of incidents Val has just.
Yes. Thank
Yinko
you.
says, good morning, guys. Who will arrest those with police orderly? Relax. That is how we are created. Amotekun to combat siren blasting. God bless the Republic of Nigeria. Thank you, Yinko. Zemeka says, what if those private people with covered? What of those private people with not covered number plates? Actually,
Talked about that recently.
they said, how come they were not included? Prince says, there is nowhere in the news where the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council come against a border closure. And again, the EAC is for the president. I do not think they should be talking to the public unless permitted by the persons that appointed them. That's from Prince. Yinka here sent another one.
Inka says on WhatsApp, Mr. C, if those are the ones allowed to use sirens alone, then we have a lot of presidents, especially on Third Mainland Bridge. In fact, there is this black Toyota car with one pickup escort filled with SARS guys always blaring sirens on Third Mainland Bridge. In fact, there was one that asked me to move off my lane so they can pass. Guess what? What was next to me was the iron barrier that shields us from lagoon. So I asked him if I should veer into the lagoon. He said yes.
Sad.
Very interesting.
Okay, let's move on to our next story. My invectives were not targeted at Fashola. Mr. Engineer Salim Aman says, this is for Premium Times. I'll allow you to go to the story. Again, it's very detailed. Yesterday we talked about the energy sector. Mrs. Gumbi, who was reinstated by the president, fired by the minister.
Formally suspended.
Suspended, sorry, not fired. Thank you. So please, Orji, take us through the story.
Mr. C, I think that is a culture of impunity amongst public office holders. I'll add that one of the way that we see them exhibit that is the arrogance and pride in our public office holders. Just feel they are beyond reproach. I don't know why. If you read that, okay, and one of I don't know if you remember the fake news, anti-social media bills they've been proposing. All of this flow from the fact that they do not want to be criticized. There are some stories you read on. There are some things you see on Twitter, for example, and you think this has to be a parody account.
Yeah.
You cannot expect this from an official account. When I read the statement of that ministry, I was stunned. I saw it the first time. I said this cannot be true, so I moved on. By the time I started seeing other people talk about it, I said, okay, this has to be real. I could not believe a public office holder issued such a statement and nothing had been done about it. It's because we don't have shame, and that's another thing. So on one hand, that impunity is there. So the other aspect of it, to make it worse, we do not have shame. And when I say we, I'm talking about the public office holders. Because if anything, if you as a minister suspended head of an MDA under you, and the president came back to say, look, this was not done with due process, you should resign.
Yes.
But of course, you do not expect Nigerian office holders to resign. So what they've done now is from that statement, because it was obvious they were referring to the former Minister of Power, who is also a minister, but they denied it.
Let me tell you the aspects of the statement that a number of people criticized and said was pointing to the former Minister of Power, where he said the ministry also accused a cabal, in quotes, using some faithless groups in Lagos attempts to undermine the efforts of the new minister. The mention of Lagos raised a lot of eyebrows with regards to why Lagos. Of course, we know that Governor Fashola is from Lagos, former governor, two-time governor of Lagos State. So people then raised concerns of that.
No, take it back to the first paragraph before. It also says, despite the huge resources President Muhammad Buhari poured into the ministry, power ministry, for over 4 years, there has been no tangible results. So, who was Minister of Power 4 years ago? Of course, it was Mr. Fashola. So, however they want to deny it, we know who they were referring to. And it's a shame that you have ministers bicker at that level. And like I said, I would have expected them to maybe dismiss the person who issued that statement. I know that he couldn't have issued such a statement without the minister. But that's how power is. So, when he backfires like that, pretend as if you don't know about it and then sack the person who issued it, but he won't because he's part of it. He can't deny it was Fashola he was referring to, but it's good he's come out to deny it at least. It just shows he acknowledges how bad it is.
So, one quick thing, the said press release was extremely irresponsible and unbecoming of a public officer because aid is employed by the minister and is paid from the public coffers. And this is extremely, for you to describe critics as whalers, that is unfortunate.
Yes. Right. Well, they've said that they hold Mr. Fashola in high esteem as one of the most celebrated public servants in the country.
That is true.
Yes, I just put that out there.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to this next story. Mr. C, how government can stop wasting trillions on fuel importation? It's mind-boggling to still hear that we import PMS, where that's premium motor spirits. That's where petrol is processed from. 3 trillion naira is spent on importing about 18 billion liters of premium motor spirits. How do you see this story? What emotions does it stir up in you?
This story just makes me wonder, when will Nigeria ever get its act together? Now, Lagos Nigerians, please listen carefully. Last year, we earned about 3.73 trillion naira from the sale of oil, crude oil. 2019. That's what we got. We spent 3 trillion naira importing 18.1 billion liters of this. We spent 80.4% of our earnings from crude oil importing petrol.
What does that really mean? For one, I know that one of the things it indicates is that we lack the capacity to process crude that we have in Nigeria in ourselves.
Okay, so we have 4 refineries. The 4 of them combined for last year produced 166 million liters. They're not operating at optimal capacity. And every day we just hear stories of turnaround maintenance, this plant is down, that plant is down. We don't understand why. Now, several proposals have been made to the government. Allow modular refineries. They're smaller, they're compact, and they can serve specific areas or geographical locations in the country. For reasons best known to the government, it hasn't yet approved that policy. That's one. 2, when you listen to the government officials from the NNPC, GMD, to senior officials in the petroleum industry, they keep referring to the fact that Nigeria will need to report again. But there's a catch. The rig is legally located in its zone. When the crude oil is produced, it has to go out. If you back or sell in Nigeria, in your accounting book, it must be treated as an import.
Right.
And I'm not sure that Alhaji Dangote is focused on solving Nigeria's problems. He's a businessman,
of course.
Is this profit? So it now calls into question, what are our elected representatives doing? What are we as a public doing? If we all hold our representatives to account and ask them to find out and determine why our refineries are not working, because we cannot sustain this. So 80.4% of what we earned last year was used to import petrol. How does the rest of the economy grow?
But then when you see that and you place it side by side, all companies making a lot of profits and host communities still complaining till now. Or in 2020, the presidency is bringing statements as reported from the Guardian.
It's extremely shocking because I'm sorry, the companies, international oil companies, that make profits. They're profit-making entities. The state governments have the primary responsibility for developing all the areas within their states. Successive governments have failed to do that. Why is that the problem of an IOC?
Well, isn't it worrying that it's coming from the presidency, who very well that terms of that they know at least I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, they'll be in the first position to know at least a clear value, to have an idea of the clear value of money they get, right, from these IOCs, and then trickle it down to the states as monthly disbursements.
So it is, again, culture of impunity. You play to the gallery knowing that there are consequences. How do you make a statement like this? There's a 13% derivation fund that goes to specific states in Nigeria. Has anyone called the governors of those states to account for what they're doing with that money? Now, those host communities have in the House of Assembly, have representatives in the House of Reps, have representatives in the Senate. Have they called any of those human beings to order and ask them to account for what is going on? And there's only so much an IOC can do in a host community. Because that's not what they're set up to do. They are governed by the articles and memoranda of association. And they specifically state what they can do and what they cannot do. So the government should stop playing to the gallery, behaving like the ostrich, and tackle this problem. If successive governments had taken this development in bits and phases, the story would not be like this today. We would not be discussing this story.
Addresses Bioko today.
Yeah.
The small things.
Small things greatly.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. C. I'll get back to this story first, but let's take this message here.
All right, so Yinka says nothing claims major IOCs run refineries, but in Nigeria, it's not the case. See, until we make the ministries, especially the oil ministry, political, where the role of the minister is to be applied into like an open vacancy, we won't get that sector right.
It's a culture of competition. The Guardian newspaper has the story: poor equipment, visibility, stoke, safety concern in the aviation sector. While this concern has been back up in the changing weather, Hamata and the flu seems to be around. We know it affects visibility at the airports. Now, I'm going to take us back to Orji. 2018 in December, there was a statement made by the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency. They talked about how the instrument landing systems were being installed. There was some refurbishment that was made. In August of 2018, Lagos and Abuja airports were reported to have received an installation of Cat 3 instrument landing systems that's supposed to ensure that, in spite of this, even in hazy conditions, airplanes could still land in low visibility conditions. But why is this still a concern?
Mr. C asked a question when he's doing his last analysis, when do we intend to get our acts together as a country? My answer probably next decade, not this one, because we are clearly not serious. Now, the story is that international flights particularly had to divert their planes from Nigeria to, so what the story mentions is Ghana, which means obviously there's something they're doing in Ghana that's better than what we're doing in Nigeria. But it's not even just Ghana alone. There was a story I saw on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, about someone who said his nephew's flight from Paris to Lagos had been. They informed them that Lagos airport, the runway they couldn't light up the runway, so they had to divert the plan to Cotonou.
Sorry, say that again. They couldn't do what?
They couldn't land because Lagos could not light up the runway.
Light.
Yes.
Wow.
And so they had to divert the flight. They told them when they landed at Cotonou. FAN, that's Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, replied on Twitter to say the flight was diverted due to poor visibility caused by Harmattan haze. As if it's like you've mentioned, we've been on this for a long time. I even have a personal experience for this. They've mentioned here that Calabar Airport, for example, considered poor visibility. That's the truth. I've suffered it before. Two years ago, in December, I had to go for a conference in Calabar, and I was to come back during the week because I was to be in court on Monday. We were at the airport from Saturday morning till night. No planes could land, none could take off all day. We went back to our hotel room, came back again the next morning, the same thing, and I was to be in court on Monday morning. I couldn't take the risk. So you know what I did? I went by road. This was already 10 a.m. because it was now obvious they couldn't fly again that day. So I left by
10
road.
p.m.
10 a.m.
Oh, 10
No, we
a.m.
couldn't go on Sunday.
Okay.
This was on Saturday. On Sunday,
morning.
same thing had happened. So I had to leave.
Yes. Knowing that you had to be in
I had to
court
be in
on
court.
Monday.
And I won't say I ran into kidnapper because they were not coming for me. At Onitsha, I stopped, and then just beside me, they highlighted from a bike, and they had guns. So it was the car next to it they were targeting. But anything could have happened. And then the question is, I'm not saying those who travel by road are inferior to me or something, but it's shocking that a country like Nigeria will continue to have the same problem. And the equipment have been installed, like you rightly pointed out. According to them, they've carried out a test running which show that they are fully operational on test basis.
Okay.
They are now blaming other sister agencies. This NAMA is saying that they are saying that you should blame NCAA because they have the calibration aircraft which has not been made available to them.
Wow.
So it's with NCAA. So we now have issue with that case. Do we blame FAN? Do we blame NAMA? Do we blame NCAA?
And then we'll continue to wonder why it's cheaper to fly from Ghana to all parts of the world.
And we are the giant of Africa.
No, we're not.
We are the giant of Africa.
We are?
Oh, we say we are the giant of Africa.
We're not.
We have to go. But yeah, we are the giants of Africa. It's been touched, I guess. It's Freshly Pressed 981. Let's continue the conversation with that hashtag, Freshly Pressed 981. Special thanks to Mr. C at the Mr. C on Twitter and Orji Uka at Orji Uka. Next is the Grapevine 981 at 8:15. Stay with us.
Well, I took that story last year.